video, I want to talk about some great tools for getting out of stuck places with a partner. Now, the first thing I want to identify is what's the worst stuck place. There's a couple of possibilities. One is when both people have intense needs for reassurance and love and closeness and bonding in different languages and in different ways. And so there's no adult present. What that means is there's regression to a young age in which there's desperate feelings, and there's no adult present in that situation to respond. It's a really difficult one. The best way to respond to that is gently disengage and bring in a kind third party and or kind and nurturing friends. Now, to prepare for that place, find a good joint therapist, perhaps even as the relationship is forming, and kind of establish comfort and rapport. Make sure the therapist is available. It's not really helpful if you call them up and say, I really need to see you, and they're available in 2 weeks or something. So availability and responsiveness is very important in a therapist. Second, friends and or environments where you can be held gently, really gently in those places, understood, and can have one's needs honored as opposed to shamed, judged, and apologized for. So that's kind of the thing. The other thing, you can take a little space and do some self-care. Now, human love is always conditional. There's so many things it depends upon. And one of the reasons for that is that as soon as we're brought down into our reptilian brain, it's fight, flight, survival. And it's completely sociopathic. So as soon as we're brought down to that level with a trauma trigger, we are no longer human beings. We are lizards in our behavior, in our thinking, in our feeling. Not always in our behavior. Sometimes our witness can say, okay, I'm thinking and feeling this. Let me do this instead to kind of respond to my lizard needs. I need to be completely away from anyone right now because, my lizard's in a flight mode. But I can gently say that, I have so much panic coming up right now, and I really don't want to hurt you, and I don't want to abandon you. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to run away right now. And so just to, include, and this is not about you, but I don't know any other thing to do. I'm going to hurt you, basically, if I'm near you. And so I'm going to run. And I'm going to go down into I'm going to acknowledge the reality that something has come up that is so threatening in terms of unresolved childhood or past trauma that I am now, my body, is 85% lizard, and I've just got enough consciousness to kind of maybe gracefully communicate what's going on, and make a hasty retreat in whatever many hours or days of that retreat. Come back. Now, it's really important to have these retreat points, particularly if we know that we are someone who needs to be a lizard at times. And there's lots of logistics around that you can kind of prepare a protocol in advance. This is part of getting to know one another in all of one's expressions, because we are a lizard. We are a sociopathic lizard in some of our states. We are a vulnerable, innocent child in some of our states. We are a curious, adventurous teenager. We've got so many different states that are part of our human expression And part of what intimacy, into me you see, part of what intimacy, part of what love, part of what care, part of what respect to look and look again at oneself, at another, part of care, love, and respect is to know and bring these conversations gently to the table and say, you know, part of this relationship, I'm really sensitive in this area. I've got areas I don't know where I'm sensitive, but I do know what my pattern is of retreat. And I know it's much worse meaning I feel it terrible if I just run away and I feel like a fool, and now I can't go back because I feel too humiliated. And so I've got to tell you what my patterns are so we can gracefully do this together and honor the pattern, honor the different states that we get in, and come back with love and kindness and respect. Once we're, you know, maybe you need to be apart when you're a lizard, and then you come back, or you start to come back when you're moved from that into a desperately needy child who's been abandoned by oneself when one's a lizard, you know, when one's in that fight, flight, panicky mode. So how do we communicate that and then come back, you know, and is it to nurture the child and be silent for a little while? Is it to meet in the warm pool of a place and, you know, maybe design a protocol for coming back? Now, I'm going to talk in another segment about creating space in our reality, because all of these things, they're exquisite. They take time, they take skill, they take preparation, and we are so worth it. And yet it sometimes means creating space in our reality, not taking a certain job, not doing a certain activity, not packing our calendar in such a way that everything falls apart, when our humanness needs space to breathe so our relationship can grow and expand. So I'll talk about that in another segment. But in this point, I'm just talking about this one place and the ways of preparing for this stuck place when we need something desperately and our partner cannot give us what we need. Now, this is actually very exciting. This is a very, very exciting landscape in the relationship. It's intense, it's dynamic, it's intimate, it's rich, and it has the potential for profound healing and letting go of so much of the shame of these reactive patterns. These patterns are not us. It's a part of our past. It's a part of our ancient history, these reptilian patterns. Letting it go. Being seen, being known, being loved in this place where we all began as reptiles. And it's profoundly, profoundly honoring to engage and to respond in this terrain. And so it may end the relationship if it's handled poorly, which is why you want care, you want respect, you want healing when you go into this terrain. But this is not the most dangerous type of terrain. The most dangerous type of terrain is when you're starting to go numb and you're shutting down and you don't know how to put a name on it. You don't know how to respond. You're closing down, you're separating, and you're separating from the separation. So it's just like kind of falling out of relationship in these bigger and bigger spirals without any language, without any consciousness. And then just finding oneself dissociated from the relationship, separate, alone, and not having any way to come back, and just feeling somehow we're a stranger. And, whether it's not picking up the phone, avoiding one another, it's I would call this kind of the graveyard of relationship. And so how to respond when this is just beginning to happen. And one of your big tools is meta conversations. You got a couple of different angles of response, but one of them, for example, on another level, is to do something challenging and succeed as a couple to do something challenging. Go on a hike, do a climb, cross a dangerous bridge, suspend, do something challenging and succeed together. And this may restore the sense of bond and trust without words. But on a verbal level, the real key is meta conversations. So what's a meta conversation? A meta conversation is a conversation about the conversation. Now, it can be a conversation about the physical conversation. I just noticed you did that, and I'm curious why you did that. I just noticed your body is twitching. Every time I say this thing about my mom, your body is twitching. Do you know why your body is responding? What's beneath that? So it can be about what's happening. It can be about a feeling. Pause there. When you said that, I just felt this deep sadness, and I don't know what it is. Could we pause and look at that before you continue? Because otherwise I'm off in this separate experience that you know nothing about and I know nothing about, because we haven't slowed down. So meta conversations, conversations about the conversation, conversations about our body language, conversations about our behavior, conversations about our thoughts. Now, and conversations about our feelings. So when people are stuck, there's usually a mutual awareness. Now, some partners are quite unconscious, and so if I say something like, it seems like we're on eggshells today. Have you noticed that? They'll say, no, nothing. So at that moment, I could abandon the meta conversation, or I may say, okay, well, let's leave you aside. It seems like I'm on eggshells around things, and I haven't felt this way before. And I'm trying to look at what's new in our reality. Is it the location? Is it the topic of conversation? Is it the amount of time we've been in relationship that's bringing this? Is it the level of stimulation? Is it a new fear? Is it something that's happened in my reality? And the trick is to include our partner. It doesn't matter if it's about them, if it's about us, or if it's about me. The trick is to include our partner. That's what it is. I had a client tell me that, I was a real jerk and, my value wasn't there. And I'm kind of racing and trying to see, why did they say that? What about that is true? Like, they obviously, they looked at some data that they made that conclusion from. What data did they look like, and how much of that data was accurate data? And then, is that a reasonable story around that data? And might other people have that story? So I'm just kind of spinning in all of that. And I'm afraid that there's areas of our relationship that you feel that as well. Do you feel that way? So And they may say, well, yeah, when you're ordering at a restaurant, you seem, a little bit like a pompous asshole. And so you have that. I've had that thought. I know it's not who you are. And you seem pretty oblivious of it. And I still love you. And I know there's a lot bigger parts of you than that. And I'm sorry if that hurts you, but so that's there. But I'm going to include you in the meta conversation and bring intimacy. And in that case, then have a meta conversation about that. Like, well, how does that feel to you? Can you understand that perspective? Can you forgive me for having that judgment? Well, it really hurts because I love that flair. Like when I'm ordering stuff in restaurants and I kind of feel like a magician, like I'm taking you out and I want stuff to just appear. And so like, yeah, bring over the wine list and do this and do this. And what I'm celebrating is the magic of making stuff appear for you. And to have you hear that, like I'm a pompous asshole, it really hurts because that part in me, it's a really core part, like wanting to make the world magical for you is a big part of me. And that part doesn't want to show itself if that's the lens that you see it through is, pompous asshole, as opposed to magical magician, which is what I want to feel and be perceived as. And I get that this culture calls, assertiveness in this tone, in this kind of, lordly tone. I get that this culture calls that, condescending or whatever, but that's not how I'm feeling. I'm feeling excited and I'm feeling delighted, and I want to have a strong bond with the waiter and waitress. I want to create a performance together. And I'm sad. I'm sad when I see a waiter cowering or something, when they don't get it, and I'm not sure like how I can create that experience and not hurt anyone's feelings because I don't know. So that's what's up for me. But going back to this situation of we're a little stuck and we're on eggshells, just that. The meta conversation, the conversation about the meta conversation. Know that meta conversations can go, 5, 6, 10 deep, I think we're on eggshells. No, I don't. Well, I am. And I think it's about this. Do you think that? Meta conversation about the meta conversation. Yes, I do. Meta conversation about that. How does that feel? So we're now 3 meta conversations in. And then new meta conversation. Well, this is who I want to be. This is who I want to bring to the relationship. And I don't know what to do within these cultural filters. I just know there's something good at the core of this. And it's often misinterpreted, misunderstood. And that's really painful for me. Meta conversation about the pain. Oh, tell me about that pain. It's aching. It is so fucking aching. Every time I find this core that something beautiful wants to come out. It doesn't fucking fit into these little boxes of what's appropriate. And then it's, and people slap this judgment and they don't check with me and they don't feel the joy, and they're not even attuned to the feelings. They're just stuck in their head like, was that too arrogant? What did this say in this magazine? And it's just so fucking painful. Who's there feeling the joy? Who's there feeling the joy? Meta conversation about that. Do you need to be held? Do you need to be cared for? You go deep into the meta conversation until you get to the core. You find the gift. You find this beautiful sun, this beautiful moon, this gentle energy, this joy that's close to essence. And you bring it all the way home, back through the meta conversations, delivering it to the conscious mind. You find the gold. You find the gift. You find the essence. You find the life flow. You see where it's been stopped with grief that can't be felt, it's so painful. With rage, it can't be felt, it's so scary. With hurt, with pain, with misunderstanding, that's so painful because there's misunderstanding about the misunderstanding about the misunderstanding about the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding can be 10 deep. It's painful. You find the joy and you bring it out through the meta conversations. Thank you for holding me in this pain. Thank you for seeing me. Please look for this. Look for this joy. Next time I'm lordly or kind of exuberant and abundant, look for the joy. Celebrate that sun that's wanting to come through, that's been wanting to come through for decades and gotten twisted and judged and pushed and it's just this crumpled, shriveled, painful thread. It's just so ugly, I don't even want to go in there. And let's let the blood flow. Let's let the blood flow. And if that's too knotted, let's give that horrible knot to some sacred energy that can release it. And let's bring in a new cord. And let's just decide where we're going to flow. You see this now, the gold. You see this now, the gold that wants to flow out into us, into me, into you, into reality. You see it now. Where are we going to channel it in a way that feels alive and bright to both of us? Can you open your eyes, open your mind to a sense of possibility that allows this to be seen? How's it going to flow in? How would you like it to be? Like maybe you want this exuberance to be shown up in my appearance. I can wear a cape or a king's outfit, or maybe I can open the door or do the driving or something. Like, how is this going to express itself that brings joy and understanding to as many people as possible in this culture? It's a limited culture, it's a limited paradigm, but we've got to find a way for the relationship not to die, for us not to die. We've got to find a way for that energy to come forth. How? We can co-create it together. Oh, I see what that's about. Thank you for showing me your light. Thank you for showing me who you are. I never let that in. I'm so grateful to see you. I'm so grateful to see you and not my judgments. And I'm going to help you with that. I'll pull the waiter aside. Maybe I'll even tell them ahead of, my partner's coming. He loves to create this experience of, give us a waiter who doesn't mind that, and tell them what it's about. He loves presenting things to me, and we'll give him an extra tip. And I'm going to enjoy that gift. And we can make a beautiful scene in the restaurant of a couple in love. And we're going to celebrate that. And that's healing the heart. Healing the heart. So beautiful, this love, this light coming out in a new way, back into the meta conversations, healing all the way out. And now love is flowing again. Now once this love is flowing again, we are no longer stuck. We're no longer in a cramped place. Now one or both people may be in that, but meta conversations, conversations about the conversations, and it's an art form. It's an art form to track it. You may even need to take notes. You may even need to pause and see how far you do. It's one of the most beautiful art forms there is in relationship. Going into the depths. Holding all the pieces. Having them all laid out there. And then moving our fingers over and reassembling them to where those same energies, those same core energies coming through now touch us musically in a completely different way. Thank you.